Hey everybody, this is James here with another update about my game development game, which is now called Gather. A game where you go and gather some crops and you pick them up like this and you plop them in a little boat guy over here. It's a lot of fun. We're going to dive into what I've been working on in the past week from where we last left it off. But before we dive into that, Gather is now up on Steam, where you can head over and go and wishlist the game, which really helps out. For everybody who takes part in game development and publishes a game, they'll get a key for this game when it's released, and when it comes out it won't be too crazy expensive either. But I'm really excited to get this going and talk a little bit about what goes into putting a game on Steam too. It's been a lot of interesting times, as always, getting things going with Steam. So head over there now in the link in the description down below, wishlist the game. Wishlisting, it really helps the game, it helps it get noticed by Steam and all that fun stuff, and it's free to do. It just takes a second to go do it. I'd really appreciate it if you could go and hit that little wishlist button now. But before we get to that, let's dive back in time to the start of the week where I was working on the game, and I knew I wanted to have it a little bit easier to design levels as I go, so I wanted a system that would allow me to create the areas in the game to allow us to use them nice and easily. So I started off by setting up this little system that would allow me to adjust the size of the game, of the little play area, when the game is running at this time, which obviously isn't something we're going to want to use in the game, but it was mostly to test out the concept of resizing this little box. So then I played around with it some more and made it so that I could resize the little object area itself in the editor. So now I could go and manually make levels. This is not while the game is running or anything like this, and it allows me to see where everything is going in the game, and it makes things feel a little bit nicer with what we're doing here. So now that I had that in place, I decided to make a few little test levels to make sure the basic idea of the game are in place to allow me to manipulate stuff. I also added these little bits of decoration around the level, so little stones and bits like that. They're randomly kind of generated in the game. But the idea was to just have these little test levels so that I could test out some of the concepts, so things like having transitions between the levels like that, where it fades in and out and things like that, and we have the loop all working of completing a level and it moving on to the next area and things like that. But one thing I found while doing all this was that the art style was kind of at odds with what I was doing here. Originally I had this idea of creating these small dioramas of kind of like a play set almost, but with the cartoony art style that didn't really fit with what was going on here. So I needed to rethink what I was doing. So I spent most of Easter Sunday not actually working on the game physically, because I was spending time with family and things like that, but I was thinking about what I was going to do. And eventually when I did get back to working on the game the next day, I came up with this idea of making it so that the entire thing was taking place on little islands, so little kind of cartoony islands. So I created this simple little water effect, which kind of it's not a very complicated effect. It's actually very, very much a kind of trick. It's basically just some planes that have like a scrolling little effect going on. It's very slowly moving with the water. It took a little while to do that. You can see if I zoom in here that this little bit of ground here, rather than it being one big massive plane, it's actually around each edge. It's separated out into these little bits, which was kind of the more efficient way to do it rather than creating a whole big massive thing. There was problems with some of the other methods I've seen to do this. There you can see if I can just switch the material to different things, and then if I pop it back to being the right one, it looks nice and pretty. So now that I had some water in the game, I wanted to make that water actually do something. So rather than just being pretty for the sake of it, you can drop objects in the water and then now bounce around and kind of float and hover there. Again, another little trick effect. It's not like they're interacting with the water, it's when they hit the water, there's a little circular kind of mesh that appears around them to create the effect of the water. Nothing too complicated, but kind of a simple little trick that makes it feel like there's something actually going on. And I really feel like this kind of fits in with the art style of the game now. It really feels more like it. Obviously the edge of the box here, we don't really want it to look like a box. That's also super placeholder. So we needed to change all of that and make it look a bit better. So I swapped out the edge of that box for something a little bit more kind of looks like an island. This is something that's probably going to change still as well, but I also made it so we had this little boat that you're dropping the object into rather than a random floating basket, which again didn't look great, didn't make a lot of sense with what we're doing here. But now we've got a nice little boat that shoots out some smoke, maybe not in this video, I have since updated it so that it shoots out a little bit of smoke into the air as we're going along, but it feels a little bit more like something that makes sense within the world of the game. And while I was doing all that, I was also setting up the Steam page. So the Steam page took a little while to do. When you set up your account on Steam, you have to... Obviously, I already had an account from my previous games, Skookaboom and the Tomb of Doom, so that was already approved and everything like that. But once you set it up and start getting your page going, you have to design your store page, and then that takes a couple of days to be approved by Valve, which is fine, but it just takes a little while to go through these processes. Unfortunately, I can't really show the behind the scenes view of what's going on with the Steam stuff. I think it's mostly kind of when you agree to your terms, you're not supposed to show any of that stuff, but suffice it to say, it's mostly a whole bunch of trying to find the right images. There's about 10 different kind of sized images that you need for your game to be displayed in different places, which also meant, of course, I had to spend some time working on the logo for the game, which is perfectly fine. I think I'm happy enough with the logo. It takes a little while to do it, but eventually the page was approved by Steam, so this video is going up today on Saturday, and it was yesterday that I finally set the page to be live on Steam for everybody to go and wishlist the game, which hopefully loads of people have already done. You've been watching this video and you should have already wishlisted the game. If you haven't already, what are you doing? Head over there now and get it all going. So the final thing I've actually done now, with all that stuff in place, is, if I go back out to my main menu here, I did some work on the main menu. This is not what's going to end up being the final thing over here or anything like that, but mostly I spent some time working on our level select system. So now the idea is we'll have different groups of island that you travel to as you go, and you'll switch between the islands, and then within each set there'll be a variety of levels. So if I click on this guy, we'll go into here, and one of the fun things to get set up was if I quit out from here back to my level select, rather than this all takes place on the same main menu screen, or same main menu scene even. It was fun, kind of a fun thought process to try and work out, what's the best way to make it so that I can return back to the correct level. So I went into level 2 here, and you can see I come back out on level 2. Now there's still a bit of UI work to be done here, because as you can see, some of the water effects here are making it hard to read the buttons over here. Stuff like that needs to be sorted out. It's all very placeholdery right now, but the basic process and basic ideas are all in place here for what we want to do. So yeah, we're coming along nicely, and I hope everyone is following along and working on their games and making their games be awesome too. There's been a whole load of cool updates from people in the Discord server. Everyone's kind of... We're in the middle of the month now. Everyone's kind of knuckling down and getting through the basics of what needs to be going into their games as they go. And our game is turning out to be a lot of fun. But one thing we need to do now is start making a whole bunch of levels. So we're going to start adding in as many levels to the game as we possibly can over the next little while. And hopefully we'll start getting some cool things happening and cool interactions happening in the game, which is a lot of what needs to go in for now. And then that's going to be the plan for the next week, is a lot of level design elements. And then the final week is probably going to be a lot of producing assets and tweaking different things and making things feel nice as they go. So thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you're all doing amazing in your own games too, and I look forward to seeing some more updates and more information about what everyone's working on and what cool things are happening to them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all very soon.